I'm always persistent. I call back over and over.
So if you want it, it's 2:05.
Okay, Cam, we're ready when you are. You good to go? Okay. All right. Hereby call the January, 4th, 2018 Design Review Board meeting to order. Do we have minutes? We do, okay. We do, all right. So y'all have in the packet the December 7 minutes. Do we have any questions or comments?
I didn't see them.
Were they in the packet?
Oh, they were, I went to the wrong place. I'm trying to look at them.
Okay. Okay, any questions or comments on the minutes?
Did,
Do we have
did we have November 2nd minutes to approve? Or there wasn't a meeting? No, okay.
Okay.
That was my only question.
Okay. All right, do we have anyone interested in making a motion?
Make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
We have a motion, do we have a second? Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Just finished reading.
Yeah, very good. Okay, next item on the agenda are announcements. Do we have any announcements from the staff?
Good evening. Just one, item number 3, the whitewash boutique building sign. The applicant has requested that that be continued until the February 1st, 2018 meeting.
Okay. And that was to continue.
That's correct.
Good, okay, thank
February
you.
1st.
Yep. All right, any other?
Do we want to go ahead and discuss?
We can. I just want to make sure there's no other announcements or whatnot. I would like to welcome the new, I believe your title is Assistant County Attorney, Heather Chrisman, to our little board. So, okay, items to be heard. I think we have just the one that is to be continued out of our 4 items. Is that correct?
That's
We have a
correct.
second. Okay, good. So, okay, yeah, we'll deal with if everybody's okay with it. Jump to item number 3, the whitewash boutique building sign, and Chair will entertain a motion to continue that to the February 1st meeting.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further questions or conversation? Anybody from the audience? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, back to item number 1, Grand Boulevard South deviation.
And
Okay.
do I need to go ahead and, I need to recuse myself, because I work for the applicant,
Okay,
so
all right.
I need to exit.
Madam Attorney, should Ms. Moore sit in the audience for this, or?
Either way, as long as she
Okay.
doesn't take part in the discussion.
Okay.
that's fine.
No hand signals.
I promise.
Okay, staff, would you like to introduce the?
Absolutely. This is a request submitted by GB Retail on behalf of Grand Boulevard South, and they're requesting an approval of a landscaping deviation on a 1.45 acre parcel. That's the future land use designation of Coastal Center, and I believe the intent here is to match the existing tree and plant types that are part of the Grand Boulevard development. Now, turn it over to the applicant if they're here.
Sir, if you could introduce yourself for the record and
Sure.
spell your name.
My name is Tom Betts, B-E-T-T-S. I'm Development Manager for Howard Group, and here on behalf of Grand Boulevard Retail LLC. Really, our request is pretty simplistic. In 2002, 2003, the Design Review Board approved a certain palette of trees and understory stuff here in front of what became the Publix portion, which we call Phase 1 of Grand Boulevard. In 2004 and 5, they did the same thing for the courtyard and the Residence Inn frontage. We used the same exact palette. In 2007, we got approval to do the exact same palette for all of this, which we call Phase 2. In the last year, we acquired this one teeny tiny little piece of 182 feet of frontage with 1,700 feet on this side, 2,000 feet on this side. We just want to make that 182 feet match so it reads Grand Boulevard from one end to the other. That's it.
Okay. You have any questions of the applicant on the board?
That seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah.
Okay. I have just one question. In the photographs, I couldn't tell, is there existing lighting on this property?
There's street lighting, what we call decorative lighting, that goes along the sidewalk.
Yeah.
About every 45 feet.
Okay. So there are no plans to add any additional lighting to the property?
There's lighting that'll go, same thing, in the same rhythm. See, everything's in a rhythm. It's like 3 oaks and 3 palms and 3 oaks and 3 palms. Well, it's the same thing. You have every 40 or 45 feet, there's a light.
Okay. I guess my observation is it doesn't appear that lighting is indicated in the application.
There was a lighting plan with the application. Well, no,
Okay.
I got back. There's a separate application for a development of a parking lot, temporary parking lot on that parcel. So this is a separate application within the application for the development.
Okay.
We had to get this approved first before we could go through and finish the development.
Okay. So the parcel does or does not have improvements on it today?
It does not, it's just wood.
Does not. Okay. Okay. So I may have misunderstood the photographs in the packet. So I guess the question would be is if lighting is something that this body reviews, are we going to see the lighting at a different point in time?
The lighting's going through, the lighting and all the other parts, even the landscaping went through the original TRC review. It's just it was kicked out because the landscaping didn't match the development code 100%.
Okay. Okay. So all we're looking at is a deviation. We're only looking at the items that require a deviation. Is that, and I'm sorry, I'm looking to staff to make sure I understand. So, okay. So all of the items that are either compliant or they're covered under the existing
Request for development.
master. Okay. All right. Well, I guess if everybody understands that, then are there any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, I'm looking for a motion to do something.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Properly moved. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay. Properly moved and seconded. Do we have any other comments? Do we have, actually, I guess I should afford an opportunity, I'm sorry, time out on the vote there. Afford an opportunity for comment from the audience? None? Okay, all right. In that case, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can come back to life.
Okay, item number 2, Forest View Village Office Complex.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is a request by Interline Engineering Corporation, and the applicant is here to construct an 1,800 square foot general commercial office building within the Forest View Village PUD with the future land use of general commercial. Tim had noted some application discrepancies here, so I'm going to let the applicant address those. We'll be able to go through those. Okay.
Okay, sir, again, just a formality, if you could come to the podium and introduce yourself and spell your name for the record. Thank you.
My name is David Smith, and it's S-M-I-T-H.
Thank
and I'm with Interlight Engineering Corporation, and I'm the project civil engineer.
Okay.
And I'll just do a general overview. Forest View is an approved plan unit development, and it was approved some time ago. It's 43 acres. And the property we're discussing this evening specifically is within this area of the commercial zone of the PUD. And for reference, this is MC Davis Boulevard, and the new school that's under construction is going to be on the west side of MC Davis Boulevard. We're specifically talking about this area in here. The office building is 18,000 square feet. And this is the site plan for the office building. So again, for reference, this is MC Davis Boulevard, and the 18,000 square foot building is in this area. And we do have a new drive proposed here that will be a future drive that continues in the future. And then we access off the drive and go to the north into the parking lot, which surrounds the building. And then there's a future warehouse located in this area here that will come up before in the future. So I would like to address the deficiencies that Kristen mentioned. Is the first one states that it cannot determine whether existing trees are affected by this project. It's because the property is not wooded and there are no trees. The trees are in the wetland areas, which we're not impacting the wetland areas that are on this property, and then they're also along US Highway 98. But this is actually further north of US 98. It's actually barely within the 400 feet to be within the scenic corridor. And then Joe Doherty, the project architect, is also here this evening, and he can address any questions you all have on the building, as well as he can also address the deviations listed in the staff report, numbers 2 and 3. So I'll turn it over to Joe, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you all have of me.
Okay. Do we have any questions of Mr. Smith so far? All right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm Joe Doherty of Doherty Architecture. And just a little explanation on the building. The being in the scenic corridor and the building being about approximately 190 feet long by 48 feet wide, from a aesthetic point of view, it was really important to us. And if you have the rendering up there, you could probably take a look at it, was to break the building into parts and bring the scale down. And to do that, we used different materials. We used obviously stucco, and we used a product that Tim questioned, which is called Trespa. And Trespa is that brownish panel in the front of on the west side of the building, also on the south facing the 98. And what Trespa is, it's a solid material, and it's impervious to sunlight, weather, UV, in any condition. And it's classified as a rain shield, but it's also, not only has a technical benefit, but the aesthetic as well, obviously. The technical aspect is, it's actually has an airspace behind it, between the Trespa and the waterproofing of the wall behind it. And what that does is it allows a continuous ventilation behind that screen wall, which dries and obviously cuts down on the heat gain on that side of the building. The long side faces due west, so it will get hit pretty hard with sun. So we were really looking for a product that would not break down, and because of the size of the building and that it's commercial, the maintenance would be much less.
Okay.
And we chose a color. It's a little more accurate on the rendering than I think the photocopy of the equivalent Munson color. But we chose kind of a soft brown, almost a wood color, which if you put it with the white stucco, the metal cladding makes a nice combination as far as material preference.
Is this more than a color?
Yes, it is. And I actually have an actual sample here if you wanted to look at it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic if you could.
You want to look at it?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It's actually 3/8 of an inch thick. That's just
That's a lot different.
Yeah. It is close to.
Are those the rest of the other parts of the building? Is that what you have in your hand? The other,
No, these are just other samples. We're using white for stucco, and we have a metallic, a metal that this just represents metal. So we put all three together just to.
Can we see those too?
Sure. We're not using these. Thank you.
Oh, they're not the actual colors?
No. Well, the white will be stucco, and we just have a white Trespa sample for not this project.
Got it.
These overlay to this project.
Oh,
Okay.
Thank you.
has this been used in the area?
I've used it on recently on a private residence down on 38, and a dentist office in Fort Walton.
With good results?
Actually, yes. It's not cheap.
Right, doesn't
But-
look cheap.
But it's, the really nice thing about it is, aside from the technical benefit, the aesthetics, it just doesn't break down. And it is rated for the category wind that we're exposed to. And it's just a nice material.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I guess my question for staff or Assistant County Attorney would be, regardless of whether we like this material, is it a deviation if it's not listed as an approved material? That's my question.
Yeah, I have the same question about the roof slope. If properly, we would consider that as a deviation from the code. It's a pretty clear that it's non-compliant with the code as written, and I know this board has the authority to approve or disapprove items based on aesthetic review, but I just want to make sure we're proceeding.
I'm going to defer to Kristen. Kristen,
Okay.
you're more familiar with this code than I am at this point, unfortunately.
It appears, I mean, from Tim's analysis here that, we didn't know what the rain shield panel material was or is going to be, and we did not know what the building's roof pit was gonna be, so that would make it impossible to determine whether or not it's deviation or not. Do you know what those things are?
The roof pitch, it's a barrel vault, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's not going to have a pitch.
Yes.
It has a 28 foot radius, and
Okay.
from the apex to the tail end of the eave is a 5 foot difference from top to eve.
Okay, yeah, so if we just do just a simple rise and run,
That gets pretty close, to
okay,
even though it's not a pitched roof. So-
yes.
And again, we took aesthetics into the
Yeah.
play here.
Pull that back up here. And I guess we have this is an interesting question, and I don't mean to get you caught up in it, but unfortunately, it does catch you up in it, that it's been explained to us just about every time we consider a deviation that deviations don't generate, they don't put us in a box. In other words, each one stands alone, and it doesn't set a precedent, is the word that I believe is typically used. But if we approve something that is not a deviation request, I don't know if that has the same effect or not.
I'm not sure we can,
Right.
according to code. I mean, we can approve a deviation if it's a deviation request, but if it doesn't meet code and there's not been a deviation request, my understanding is we
So-
can't consider it.
Let me ask a question that anytime we get into a little bit of a box like this that's relevant. Based on the project's schedule, how important is it that this item leave this meeting tonight versus being continued to February when we can get an answer to a question that might make us more comfortable. And the reason I say that is that we're having to choose between following the big picture of our duties and considering your project. I hate for your project to be voted on based on us
Well, I
dealing with that problem.
Yeah, I know, I understand that completely. I do know we are on a tight schedule.
Okay.
You know, and the, speaking with Tim,
Yeah.
about this, his issue was that, you know, he just couldn't say it's a 412.
Yeah.
Minimum 412. But he understood it was a design decision that it's a barrel roof rather than, you know, a typical, you know, shed roof or gable or something like that. And it was a design decision. So his thoughts were, you know, it's not just like the trespass, it wasn't a deviation, just he didn't quite understand it as to what he asked me or what he told me. And he said, if you can explain what the trespass is it a wood composite? Is it a solid material? You know, what exactly is it? And he'd better understand what we were going after.
Okay. Because I mean, if the building's 41 feet wide, and math is not my forte, but if the building's 41 feet wide and you mentioned it rises 5 feet, that's about half of a.
No, I'm talking about just the building's 190 feet long and it's 48 feet in depth.
Okay.
That's not the roof. We have probably half the building is flat roof with parapet and about half is the vaulted roof.
Yeah, and I think looking at the plans, it looks like the portion that's got the barrel vault on it is 41 feet wide.
That sounds right, just based on eyeballing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you find a measurement?
Yeah, well, I had to know how wide it is, and I'm just going on this gentleman mentioning that it has it's 5 feet from the high point to the low point.
And that radius could be, I mean, if we want to, you know, a tighter radius, obviously, that slope would get even
Well,
greater.
maybe another way of looking at this is if we were to approve the project without a deviation, and we asked the attorney's office and the staff to work together to confirm that this wouldn't require a deviation request. If it doesn't require a deviation request and we've approved it, great. If they do determine it requires a deviation request, then you all would have to come back for that deviation request, I guess would be the situation.
Makes sense.
I mean, I'm good with that if there's an assurance that determination will be made.
Yeah. And I'm assuming this project, after the stop here in February, it'll probably be in front of the planning board. So it's still it's still in the system. Okay, well.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
There's a,
Question. As I look at this staff report, it appears this is a request for a color deviation only. Is that accurate?
Correct.
yeah, I think Tim, looking at, I mean, there's a list of approved materials, and it looks to me like Tim wasn't sure whether or not this new material is indeed fitting into one of these categories.
This board's not being requested to approve building material though, is that true?
My understanding is, in my conversations with Tim, is we were coming back before the board for a color deviation next month, before this board.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think.
And I think that's what you,
Well, this is what I have with today's board. It says the applicant has applied for a building accident color deviation for the rain shield panels and HUD amendment to allocate. So I guess I'm just trying to be clear based on the staff report, what it is exactly that the applicant is asking for the board to approve today.
my understanding was everything with the exception of color.
Okay. All right.
The building itself
Yes, the building, and all other aspects of the project with the exception of color. And then,
These things that we aren't sure to be worked out later.
well, my understanding, the color deviation, staff is advertising it next week for this board meeting in February.
Okay. And again, please understand, this building is, obviously, someone spent a lot of time thinking about its appearance, and it's an attractive, I'll speak for myself, the board hasn't opined yet, but I think it's an attractive building at the combination of colors and shapes and all that kind of stuff. And for anybody who's familiar with the school nearby, it's in keeping with the architecture of the school. So I think that's great. The challenge is we have all kinds of crazy things brought before the board, and I hate for us to do something that in any way, shape, or form undermines the power of the code in the future. And that's why I mentioned that the concept of a deviation request not setting a precedent, that gives us comfort when we consider something that's a little unusual but we think is a good thing for the community. We can feel comfortable approving it not being put in a box the next time a project comes along that may be similar but that isn't appropriate for its particular site. In y'all's case, we kind of have the backwards things going on, and what I'm worried about is if we approve something that's a deviation to the code inadvertently and it's not presented as a deviation, have we done something that now this board's interpreted that this building met the code in all ways other than color? Because I don't think it does meet the code in all ways other than color, and it's not that we wouldn't approve it if it were brought to us as a deviation, it's just it's not being brought to us as a deviation. Does that make sense?
Like at TRC, when we don't have what we need, sometimes is you can approve the building conditional on these things, you know, the rain shield panels being an approved building material and the building's roof pitch information being provided. I think you cleared out number 1.
Yeah, and if it's coming back to us for a different item anyway next month, then I don't think it's going to affect your schedule, and that was why I asked that question earlier. That I hate to.
Can I respectfully make a suggestion?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. Yeah.
If we're coming back next month for the color deviation,
Yeah.
can we get the determination that you all mentioned, whether we need the deviation for the roof pitch?
Yes, and then
in
if it's
fact,
needed, then you
we
can
do,
advertise
Can
for
we
it.
expand that deviation to include that if we need it
Yeah,
for the meeting next month? Because that would keep us on the same.
Yeah,
what
yeah,
I
that's-
would
yeah.
suggest.
But I'm just not clear if we need it or not. But if we need
You've got to
it,
advertise.
we want to make sure that,
No, you and I are in the same boat. I don't know if we need it or not either. The consequence to us, though, is different than the consequence to you. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I would say the building material question should be really solidified by then too.
Yeah.
That would be,
and if staff's okay before they advertise next week, if we could expand that deviation so that we're good and
Yeah.
it gives you guys what you need as well.
And I think in the abundance of caution, if it's still not clear after having stared at it a little bit, I'd advertise, I would suggest that the staff advertise it as a deviation request for the roof slope as well, and then we can,
all of them.
It can be advertised,
Yeah.
casting the net a little bit broader.
Yeah.
And then in the event some of those items don't need to be brought before, then we can just.
Would the deviation as far as the roof be because it's a barrel vault, or it's?
well, I would say if it doesn't meet the definition of a 1-on-4 slope, and again, staff can determine if we have barrel vaults or had barrel vaults in the past or have them in the future, and they were evaluated basically just taking the high point of the roof and the low point of the roof and how far apart they were and whether that met the definition of a 1-on-4,
Right.
then great. But I don't think it meets the definition of a 1-on-4 looking at it, and it's partly because it continues going around a tiny bit. So, again, I'd be more comfortable, and we certainly could vet this out tonight. If any member that's present has an issue with the barrel vault, we can vet that out. I mean, maybe do a quick just straw raise. Does anybody have a concern with the aesthetic of the roof? I don't think we do. So I think if it were a deviation request, based on the nodding heads tonight, I think it's highly probable it would be approved.
Yeah. I just don't want to step outside code and approve something that is a deviation, not as a deviation.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's,
Okay.
So
Okay, very good. Well, let's jump back in. Knowing that it's coming back next week, I think we can deal with my concern.
Next month.
Or our concern, that way. So I guess let's jump back into the evaluation of the project. Does anybody have any questions or comments for the architect?
I
Yes.
have one. On page, it's always hard to find. Yeah. All right, bear with me, these things are tiny on our computers. Yes, thank you. Might be tiny there too. The rooftop equipment is what I'm asking about. It does reference rooftop equipment, I believe, on one of the pages of the plans, but it doesn't say how, where is it, and is it completely shielded from view is the question.
Yes. And there's a note on the roof plan that it'll
Okay.
be shielded by the parapets.
Where did it go?
To the right of the roof plan drawing.
Again, everything's so tiny, so
Yeah, rooftop condenser
probably
units are
I
screened
missed it.
probably from public view by parapet walls. Actually says for public view, I'm assuming that was a typo.
Oh, yeah. It does. It's for public use. Okay. So would it be possible on your renderings that are not from above to dot in where that rooftop equipment is, to show that it is actually screened? I'm saying this for a couple reasons. One is because we've had a lot of issues with this on the corridor, post-approval, and then we pop up with rooftop equipment that's either not completely screened or not screened at all. So my understanding is one of the requirements of the packet submission is that it show where that rooftop equipment is, dotted in behind whatever is screening it. Does that make sense? So that
Dotted in
it actually-
behind the elevations,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
exterior elevations. Sure, we can.
Yeah, we had, very recently, we had a project that was approved and built years ago, and the explanation when it was, I can't remember if it was a code enforcement case or just a post-occupancy review of some sort, or someone brought it.
Code enforcement.
It was a code enforcement case, and the architect came to us and explained that later in design, after the design was approved, the engineers decided to put some additional pieces of mechanical equipment in it, and the whole assembly ended up being a little taller, and it peaked out pretty significantly. And then we had a nice conversation, tongue in cheek, it was an unpleasant conversation about whether or not the public could see it. And so it was unfortunate, because it's probably going to set the owner back some time and money to
Yeah.
figure out how to screen it properly after the fact. So that's our interest.
So that would be, that's my only request and suggestion, strong urging.
Yep. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Beautiful
Okay.
building myself.
Yeah, it's an attractive building. So I'll try to lay out the structure of a motion if everyone wants to work with me on this. That we've got a couple items that we would like staff to review, and we'll operate on the assumption that if there is a deviation request required, that it will be advertised as such and brought before us at the next meeting. And I think the topics that have been mentioned, of course, the applicant has already acknowledged the color. And the two other ones that I've picked up on are the roof slope and configuration, and the material that the rain screen panels are constructed of. All right, so.
And did you get a chance to look at the landscape plan? You're our kind of design guy. landscape.
I did, it's a different, that was part of actually what I printed and left on my desk, so let me just pull that up. The lighting, I did look at, and from memory, I believe the tallest light fixture is 14 feet,
Nice.
Yes.
and they're all full cutoff type indirect lights, attractive lighting. The landscape plan, the only question I had is I believe there's a note about there being a reason that some of the code didn't apply. I want to make sure I'm not mixing up projects. I apologize, but I both left my printed material and then my computer decided to update for the past hour or so.
I can't pull it up. I mean, it's pulling up, it's taking a little.
Weak
long
excuses,
time.
I know.
I have a hard copy here if you need it.
Yeah, actually, that'd be fantastic, because if for some reason the landscaping plan is not actually.
They're always tiny too on the computer.
It's just, for some reason, it's just a white page. Thank you.
And you, sir, the engineer, said that there are no trees. So that really is kind of well, it's wetlands,
The trees are in
Unaffected.
The trees are in the wetland areas.
which you're not gonna use anyways. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, here's the note on sheet CLP 100. It says, requirement number 1, tree planting requirements within the scenic corridor setback. not applicable, not required on this site per PUD development approval.
I think that can address the intent of the architect's note.
Okay.
The architect's note is US Highway 98 is down here about 300 feet away. There's
Okay.
actually a proposed gas service station down here that abuts US Highway 98.
Okay,
The scenic corridor line, the 400 feet is actually about right there.
yep, okay.
So this property boundary for the office building does not abut US 98. So I think he's trying to say that 25-foot buffer along US Highway 98, the planting is not required.
Oh, this is not in the, this has no 25-foot
Buffer.
feet. Oh, it
This
is,
is
okay,
property.
understood. All right,
Doesn't abut the US 98.
okay, great.
I was thinking more the overall landscape plan.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, given that there are not, the requirements of the 25-foot buffer don't exist on this site, it appears that they are placing
Islands have to be.
major trees where the islands are, and that the perimeter is generally screened, the dumpster's noted as being screened from view.
Awesome.
So I think it certainly meets the spirit of the requirements. Good news is it's an attractive building that doesn't require a lot of landscape screening to make it look good.
That is good.
And as I mentioned, I think the lighting is in this direction that we're hoping will go. And the packet, actually, lighting-wise, the packet was very easy to read and understand, so thank you for that. Sure. This was yours, I believe. Okay, so we had mentioned those three items, and I believe if we were to have a motion that approved the project contingent on those three items being held out for further staff input at the February 1st meeting. And Karen, is that enough material for you to have an idea of what the motion is once someone decides to make it?
I will move that we approve project 18-0022 Forest View Village Office Complex, contingent upon the color being an approved color, or they're contingent upon getting deviation for the color, upon getting a deviation if necessary for the material for the rain shield, or that being an approved product, and contingent upon the roof pitch either being the correct pitch, or determined to be the correct pitch by staff, or there being a deviation for the roof.
Would it also be appropriate to include the plan showing the rooftop equipment
Oh, sure.
being brought to the next
Yeah.
meeting
Mhm.
when the other deviations are
Mhm.
presented?
Yeah.
If you're okay.
I am good with that amendment.
I'll second.
One thing before we vote, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
We had one more issue on irrigation that's not met. The irrigation, 13.030305C.08. All plant materials shall be watered by an automatic irrigation system, and it's saying it's not met, no information provided.
Is there anyone on the applicant's team that can state for the record that that is being addressed? Again, we could include that in the list to make sure that it's,
Yeah.
again, staff either determines that it's required or it's not, or that y'all indicate that in the application.
We can answer that at the next meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
so a fifth
Contingency.
Fifth
Yeah.
contingency, that the staff question regarding irrigation be resolved. Is that,
That's good.
okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Do we have any further comment from the board? Do we have any, yes,
I
sir?
have one
The
question.
applicant? Yes, sir.
These contingencies, are we working through staff to get their approval on these and their recommendation prior to
Yes,
to the next
my,
meeting?
my hope would be is that y'all sort it out prior to the advertising deadline, so that if they are in fact deviation requests, they can be advertised
Okay.
in adequate time.
That's the critical thing.
Yeah,
The three, well, the deviation per color, that will come.
yeah, that one's done, yeah,
The
yeah.
other two would be to determine if they are required.
Right.
If they are, we would expand, with conversation with staff, we would expand them to add.
That's right, yes.
The other two deviations.
Well, they may not be deviations, but we have a staff.
We would just answer those at the next meeting.
Yes, yeah. Our goal is to have a staff report that doesn't indicate that we're unsure of whether or not it meets the code.
Right, so the last two, though, would not be deviations, we would just answer those questions for you.
Right.
Yeah, and the staff would introduce the item and,
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm clear on what we need to do.
understood, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have any further comment from the audience? All right, seeing none, we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all, and thank you for
you.
bearing with us.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Can I grab that Trespa piece?
Oh,
Here.
yeah. Hard to come by.
A little protective.
So where are we now? Escape zone.
And then,
Ah,
Okay, thank you, Kristen.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Okay,
Okay.
that brings us to item number 4, the Escape Zone 60 building sign.
The last item we have is a scenic corridor sign permit application submitted by Southern Signs requesting the approval of a building sign measuring 192 by 36 for a total of 48 square feet. And this is Coastal Center mixed use.
Okay. All right. Mr. Applicant, are you here representing the? You are. Do you have any wish to come forward and make any comments, or?
The building does not have a master sign plan, that's the only reason why too.
Okay.
Terry with Southern Signs, Terry Akins, A-K-E-N-S.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And I believe
The last time I was here, we thought that complex was the only one that did not have a master sign plan, but apparently.
Found another one.
You're lucky enough to.
Which one is this? Where are we?
Okay, and the staff report does indicate that the sign meets the minimum technical requirements. I do have one question, and that is, what is a live escape?
I had the same question.
Room.
You either figure it out or you don't escape.
That leads me to believe what the alternate version of the escape might be. If one is live, the other one.
Yeah. They hold you for an hour.
Not that it has any bearing on our review. We don't cover the.
They've got one in Destin.
Yes,
They've
okay.
had for about 2 years now.
Okay. Okay, does anybody have any questions of the applicant or staff?
Well, or staff. This has come up before, and I apologize, I can't remember where we landed on it. The part that says live escape rooms, is that just a cabinet with flat lettering across it?
It is
For
a,
those words?
well, they used to say neon, but now it's LED. It is a channel. It's the same as the letters. The letters are channel letters. That is a channel bullet.
Okay,
Tag
and it has flat
Yes.
letters on it.
Yes, just like the lettering itself.
And is that backlit or just a
It's backlit,
Interior.
interior lit?
interior lit, yeah.
So did we determine that meets the code of?
These signs have been
Channel
going up
letters.
for years, just
I
like
know,
that.
there are several out there. I can't remember, we had this come up on one, not real recently, but
Yeah,
fairly
and I
recently.
believe we discussed if the face, hopefully I'm using terms that are close to the industry. If the lettering was proud of the face panel by, I cannot recall if it was 5/8 of an inch or
I
half
think
an
it
inch,
was
half an
5/8
inch, something
of an
like
inch,
that,
Yeah.
that met the code. If it was flat, then it did not meet the code.
That's what I thought, and this is flat. In that little live escape rooms.
Yeah.
We're trying to get away from flat lettering on a sign, period. That's the intent of the code, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
On a lighted sign, there is no other way.
Well, we have had other applicants come before us that presented a sign that there was and I don't recall the material that it was made of, but there was a relief, or again, the letters were proud of the material, whether they were applied to it or whether it was some sort of,
Like they were molded, there was a
molded,
mold,
yeah, molded.
Yeah. That's Hardee's, I think, had part of their sign that was
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah,
I mean, the whole cabinet is dimensional. Just
Yeah.
like the letters, they're dimensional. This is the same height as the letters.
But
Depth.
you're talking about the letters in Escape Zone 60?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the letters in live escape rooms. They're not dimensional, correct? Or am I misunderstanding? They're flat on that oblong cabinet.
On the plexiglass, that's
on the
correct.
bullet, yeah.
Yeah, that's where,
Single panel, plastic,
Mhm.
burlap sand are not permitted.
yes, that's wherein lies the rub.
Yeah. Yeah, I do believe that the example we used, a recent example is Hardee's has, I want to say it was one of the, I think it says something about a Red Robin around, Red Robin, I think it is.
Red burrito, yeah.
A red burrito, sorry. And there is a graphic of some kind incorporated into one of the letters, and it's too small to make in a separate cabinet, and so they essentially molded.
It's like embossed, is it embossed, it stands out, or?
I think you call it
is
embossed if it was on letterhead, but
But the same,
yeah. It's proud, the surface of the letters are proud of the backing of the sign.
yeah.
Okay, here's a question, or food for thought. When I was in here a couple months ago for a DHI Financial, they had a logo. It was a house. Okay, it wasn't a word, but it still was flat.
Yeah.
We had that
With the
come up
house
with
on it.
logos before and determined that
You know,
logos were different
So,
than letters.
Yeah. it's
but it
different.
didn't say house, but it was the outline of a house. And that's the only difference between the two. You're talking lettering compared to a photo.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah,
have
but
talked
that's the-
about it being different for
Mhm.
logos. You can't always make those embossed or
Yeah.
raised,
Right.
but that's,
Are you saying that it's not possible to create a sign with the letters on the small part of the
Well,
sign
since the
raised?
lettering is black, I suppose you could just,
Apply a,
I mean, it's black is opaque, so
Mhm.
you could just, yeah, adhere something on top of it. Yeah. But if it was the other way around, for instance, if it was a reverse, where the lettering, where the background was opaque and the lettering was allowing the light to come through, that would be a little bit different. But in this situation, that would be an easy fix.
yeah. I think part of the concern is for the sign when it's not lit. is it looks just like a plastic, a flat plastic sign, which is definitely not.
Well, they all look like that when they're not lit.
Yeah. Well, not the individual letters, because they're individual letters.
yeah, that's the whole
The
point.
escape, ESC, AP, E, those don't look like that because they're individual channel letters. So, if it is possible, to cut out the live escape rooms lettering the same way you would for the channel letters and then apply them to I believe you said plexi. or
Well, the
Lexan
facing, all the
plexi.
facing on all of that is plexiglass. It's
Plexiglass,
plastic.
yeah.
Whether
Yeah.
it be Lexan, whether it be plexiglass, it's
Yeah.
all plastic.
Okay, so I think it is possible to construct it with the materials you've made, so I think if we have a motion that clarifies that those need to be a minimum thickness that meets code, then
I'll make
the
that
project's
motion.
approvable as,
Does anybody else have any?
So those
Questions?
colors are, did they go along with that area? Because isn't that over there where you've got Burger King and all of that? And that
You got IHOP, you got all that.
Right,
And
right.
probably since this plaza does not have a master sign plan, more than likely, most of those signs never went up without permits, but,
Probably.
I wouldn't swear to it, but that would be my best guess.
yeah. Well, I think
The
the,
size,
Yeah.
the size all fits the requirements and all of that?
yeah, and the staff report reflects that it's compliant size-wise. So,
Yeah, that's my only issue.
Well, for what it's worth, I don't, my reading of the code is that you cannot have a single panel sign. Flat plastic single panel sign. It's that single bar of it that's problematic.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the way I feel about it too.
Mhm. Do you have an option what you can do with that?
No.
So Kristen, the idea of adhering letters with depth, would that,
Well, I think
I mean,
that,
at that point, it's
that
no longer a
helps.
flat-
Yeah, I mean, you're it's getting kind of nebulous, but I mean, in my experience with sign codes, what this means is the preferred, thing for him to do here would be to have single letters.
Yeah.
yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying, is the fact that they're adhered to a panel.
Can you not do that and stay under the size requirement, you know, instead of having that single flat panel, have individual letters?
Well, we would just put individual letters over top of we would raise the letters that are there right now.
Why do you need to have the flat panel underneath?
Well, because the customer doesn't have to pay $300 per letter when they purchase a sign.
That's what it's about on every single one of these.
That's a huge, huge difference.
So it costs the same amount to do the one bubble or bullet or whatever as it would to do one letter, essentially? Okay.
Pretty much.
That's
Yeah, and our challenge is
Well-
that the code is designed to make sure that the signs all have a certain,
And this has been the standard for years.
yeah,
I mean, I've permitted many, many signs with these bullets on them
yeah.
in the corridor.
How far would the letters protrude, if you will, from the plastic panel? What's the
And this-
maximum
and this-
depth that you
and
could
this
get?
sign right here,
Just on it's the bottom portion that
well,
I
it'd have
think,
to protrude at least a half an inch.
Yeah, I believe that, was it a half?
Because
inch?
that's
Half
the
an
code.
inch.
Yeah,
It's either
I think
5/8
that's
or a half,
Yeah.
and we didn't want to go over that because then it becomes the sign that isn't readable as you get to an angle.
Yes, yeah,
Because that's the same code for a monument sign as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's where we came up with
Mhm.
the depth. This was the point of a very long discussion,
Mhm.
That's why I don't want to keep.
which we'll try not to
slide
repeat
through.
tonight.
Yeah. I mean, I don't love the bullet backing, but I guess I could live with it.
There's just so many different terms for it. I mean, bullet, there's tagline, and there's, there's so many different names for the same thing. Different people use different terminology.
It's not visible from outer space the way our favorite sign
Yeah. It is not.
is.
Is Live Escape Rooms part of their name?
Yes,
Business?
yes. I mean, that's what they do.
Oh, yeah, I know, but like hamburgers isn't part of Hardee's name, so is that actually physically, literally a part of their name?
Yes, it is.
So this would be a deviation.
Technically it is.
Mhm.
That's well, another issue.
So would it have to come back then to the board as a deviation request?
I think so. Do you, Kristen? I mean,
I mean, I wasn't privy to your previous discussion about the depth, you know, that, I mean, maybe a determination was made at that time that, you know, if it bumps out, then it's not a single panel I'm just hardcore, so.
Tim's pretty sharp. Tim's pretty sharp about this
Yeah,
stuff.
I know, but I just have a feeling the
It's none of your
intent
business on the application.
wasn't quite
It's
that,
not
but
include escape.
it's okay.
I know.
If you had a discussion about that previously and used another portion of the code, then, yeah, that's,
Can I ask a question? Was the design due to price, or was it due to the existing sign at their other location? And when I say price, I mean it designed to save them money based on that design, or was it designed based on the other sign that they have at the other location, or how was it actually designed, the sign?
Trying to make sure I give you an accurate answer. It's always about price,
Okay.
but it's also the design, not just in the corridor, but everywhere, nationwide. Landlords understand the price, but the channel, the bullet, tagline, it follows the same, it's the same, I don't want to use the wrong word. It's the same as the channel letters. It's a channel. So it's the same design as they are, only it has flat lettering on it instead of individual lettering. You're able to combine.
not
Yeah,
part of
I mean,
the-
and our challenge is the code is clearly written. The thing that's acceptable in the communities or the counties on either side of us, east and west of us, you can put up a big box, and you can put the entire name on one single flat panel and put a bunch of, well, you used to be able to put
Well,
a bunch of
that-
fluorescent light tubes in behind
Yeah,
it.
I understand what you're
Yeah.
saying.
And the
but
fact
you-
that this is a rounded bullet doesn't change the fact it's just a small version of that sign that's prohibited by our code.
Yeah, but they don't want to get to that large, because if you start getting into the large stuff, then it looks more like, this don't look like a box, okay? It might technically be a box. I mean, a letter is a box as well. But the landlords don't want to see fluorescent signs, 4 foot by 8 foot, big boxes.
Well, it's not
with-
just the landlord
you know,
doesn't want to see it, our code doesn't allow it, and that's
Right.
that's where we get involved.
Right.
And it's not, those words aren't
Yeah.
part of the name of the company, they're not part of a logo or anything like that.
Well, let me ask a different question, perhaps come at this from a different angle. If you were to install the separate letters that read Escape Zone 60, and that's all you installed initially, how difficult would it be for you to come back and then install that bullet?
No, I don't understand what you're saying.
In other words,
What you're
if we,
asking.
I'll just put it very plainly, if we approved Escape Zone 60, but not the bullet, and later on, it were to be determined that that little bullet with relief met the code, how difficult is it for you to retrofit that bullet?
It's not all that difficult.
Well, we can always approve a portion of what's presented and not the rest of it.
And then would they be required to either, and this would be your decision or your client's decision, to either come back at it with a deviation request or?
Just proceed
Leave
with
it
the
on.
portion of the sign that's approved.
Right.
Yep.
See, like I was saying a little bit ago, Tim's usually pretty sharp about this when I talk to him before we come to the board. And usually he'll pick up on something and he'll recommend like, okay, well this might be in question. You need to approach it as a deviation or make changes. In this incident, our conversation was everything here meets code, but the plaza does not have a master sign plan. That was our conversation.
And no disrespect to Tim at all, but I think that's part of the process is more than one eye or eyes.
Yeah, that's why we're here.
That's our purpose. It's process.
But on our end, we're talking to someone, an official, we're depending upon his output in order for us to go in the right direction.
Well, unfortunately, he's not here. And for the way I see it, it looks like it's a deviation. And so I would be more inclined to agree that we would, possibly approve that part of it, and then if you wanted to come back with the request of a deviation on the other portion, then we could deal with that.
That'd be fair enough.
Okay, I think we're honing in on a motion that's doable here. So, do we have somebody who would like to make a motion to approve a portion of this sign? My dear fellow board members.
I'll make a motion to approve the top portion, Escape Zone 60, as presented. And I don't know really how to frame the second part of it. And
that
to
good enough?
Is that good enough, or are we denying a portion of it?
Karen, is that clear enough?
Well, it wouldn't be continuing, because they'd have to come back with a deviation request, right?
Right. For the bottom part.
Or,
Well,
the only reason to continue is if they came back with an acceptable design.
And maybe the motion could include, and we find the bottom bullet to be non-compliant.
Okay, we find the bottom bullet to be non-compliant, and I guess the applicant is
That's-
free to come back with a deviation request or put up what we approved.
Or a
Yep.
different design.
Okay,
Second.
Karen did that one. Very good. And we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the board? Any further questions or comments from you, Mr. Applicant?
Nope.
And we don't have, hey there. One member of the audience, do you have any questions or comments? No, okay. Very good. In that case, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And now we don't have any workshops tonight, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, unless we have any other items.
Quick question.
Yes.
I did
Oh,
want to
hey,
tell you
Kristen.
guys something that's good news. We hired a landscape architect about 2 weeks ago. Her name's Kelly Freimeyer.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry she's not here tonight, but I think she would probably be great for what you guys do. So I'll try to get her at the next meeting. She came to us from Nashville, been working for a long time doing project design. She's going to help us with placemaking and neighborhood plans, and we're really excited. So just want to let you know that actually happened.
Awesome.
Good.
Very good.
One quick thing, I just wanted to thank the board for being understanding as I'm learning all the nuances of the Walton County Code, so thank you for bearing with me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And just a question, I don't, in the transition, I'm not sure you'll know this, or maybe I missed, I've just forgotten it. Where are we with our workshops on signage and lighting? Did we have any left? Or was?
Yeah, we decided in December, we decided that
Oh,
this
that's right,
one we
we were
wouldn't
getting
be able,
2 months.
yes, we,
Okay.
yeah, Tim wasn't
That's
gonna be
all.
here and
That's
something
all.
else, yep.
I need to borrow a pen.
Okay, it sounds like we've disposed of all the business to come before us today, so.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned at, what time is it? 6:07.
How long is she gonna be out?
And did the baby arrive? Okay.